What's up? So here's how to make habits stick and literally be productive on autopilot. First up, we're going to look at breaking the cycle and how modern living makes habit formation very difficult. Then we'll look at the 3 M's and how you can build a hyper-intentional way of living using these 3. And then thirdly, we'll look at the test method, which is a process I developed to build long-lasting behavioral change. It's a quote by Benjamin Franklin. He said, "Your net worth to the world," in quotation marks, but it's pretty much the same thing, is usually determined by what remains after your bad habits are subtracted from your good ones. So first up, let's look at breaking the cycle. So what stops most people from habit formation is that they're living in a reactive state. And I'll give you a clear framework for this later, but if we can't even be proactive about what we're doing in our day-to-day, then we're not going to be implementing anything. The problem with this is that there is a very big chain of stimuli and responses throughout our day, and we are nowadays being bombarded by all of this stimuli of the news, of social media, of video games, all of these things that create way more dopamine than any type of task, any type of boring habit that we want to implement in our life that actually creates a big uplift in our quality of life, that pushes us forward and that does all of the things that we actually desire. To actually tackle this, there's 3 things we need to address. So first up, to build good habits, we have to create stimuli that trigger that good behavior. To break bad habits, we have to destroy the stimuli that trigger the bad behavior. And then thirdly, to be conscientious enough to implement all of this, we have to firstly minimize the irrelevant stimuli that trigger all of this overload. So how do we solve for all 3 areas? Well, we do this with the 3 M's. The first thing is minimalism. So we simplify our life by removing physical possessions, mental clutter, and remove as many commitments from our life as possible. Mindfulness, so we are present and aware of our thoughts and we cultivate this mindfulness every single day. And then meaning, so we find purpose and significance in the things that we are doing. So let's look at what we can implement in each of these areas. First up, in minimalism, there's 7 things that I recommend you to do. First up is to clean up the entire house, and specifically a lot of things that you have any type of emotional connotation towards, just throw them out. Anything that you're not using, anything that you do not need, just might take some time, but it'll clean up so much mental bandwidth. Second thing is just keeping a clear and uncluttered desk. I literally only have my glasses here, that's it. Have purposeful do not disturb time. So literally tell people, hey, I am not reachable during these hours. Maybe have something like a separate phone on which people can call you if there's really something urgent. Perhaps like a 2-time call thing, something like this, so you can really have a way for people to reach you, but outside of that, just be undisturbed at all times. 4th thing is to turn off all notifications, excluding the ones for meetings, right? So you don't actually miss meetings. Outside of that, literally turn everything off. If you want to check messages, if you need to check anything, just do that without being prompted to do that. 5th thing is to remove any apps and documents just to clear up as much digital bandwidth as possible. Unsubscribe from any irrelevant sources that are not actually helping you push forward towards your goals. And then even if they are, right, there is a matter of an ROI, like how much are they helping you? And I would still unsubscribe from most things. And then the biggest cheat code is just live in airplane mode. Basically being airplane mode, not just switching that on your devices, but also just being unplugged as much as possible. In terms of mindfulness, there's 3 things I wanted to give you. So first thing is work like an executive. So live out of the calendar. If it's not in your calendar, it does not exist in your life. And that means you don't have to negotiate with yourself. You don't have to try and structure, this is how many habits I'm implementing, make it very difficult. It's literally anything that stays in the calendar is the thing that you're working on. So having all of the habits as well makes it very easy. Second thing is including mindful habits. So meditation, journaling, having low dopamine breaks, so not scrolling through social media because then it's going to make the work very non-rewarding. Mindful eating, things of this nature. And then third thing is to reflect and analyze every single day. Most of our thoughts, most of our emotions are just completely unregulated nonsense. So do a daily reflection and analysis of your performance and your screen time so you become more focused on data rather than feelings. It's very important to understand that we either sacrifice the little things for the big things or we sacrifice the big things for the little things. And you just have to make a decision in this of choosing to be extremely in control of your impulses rather than being lived by them. Lastly, in terms of meaning, there's 3 key areas we want to focus on. So first up is alignment. How does this align with our core values? Second thing is impact. So how does this impact the lives of the people around us? And then third thing is contribution. So how does this thing directly contribute to our long-term goals and aspirations? The more you can be clear of these things and kind of find the sweet spot in between, the easier it becomes to stay motivated, to stay focused, and to actually live a more intentional life. What I want to give you with this as well is the understanding that regret is our guideline. If you feel like you shouldn't have done something, that is literally the signal from your own kind of consciousness to say, hey, let's cut this thing off. And just doing this one at a time clears up so much bandwidth. So next, let's talk about the test method, which is my 4-step process to build long-lasting behavioral change. To make a habit last, it starts off with a trigger. So we need some sort of trigger that makes us think of the habit. Some people recommend us to use a trigger in the form of a notification. I obviously just told you to disable all notifications, so we are not doing that. Instead, just live off of the calendar. So all of the habits, all of the meetings, all of the work times, everything just needs to be in there. And just the one thing that we need to focus on is living outside of that. For some habits, we might want to remind ourselves of a certain way of being, and it's good to have this kind of prepared. So, in this specific setting, I need these specific traits to perform at my best. And then you have a context switch trigger. So, for example, going out of work, stepping into the car, think of, okay, this is dead time. How can I best use my dead time? Right, probably listening to something productive. Step outside of the car and you go back into your home. You think, okay, how can I be the best person for my spouse, for my family, whatever it might be. Then the other thing is a doorpost trigger. So whenever you walk through a doorpost, think, okay, what is the next setting that I'm going into? How do I need to present myself? Just constantly affirming the ideal mindset makes it very easy to switch into the person that you need to be. So second thing is enjoy, and there's 2 routes we can take. So the first thing, which a lot of people recommend, is to include some type of reward that motivates you to start to take action. Now, no offense, but if you're that mentally weak that you just can't turn off this negotiation with yourself and do something, you should probably work with me or someone similar. Either way, you want to include some type of reward if you really need to, that at least is a semi-conductive habit. So oftentimes when we mess up in one area, it becomes a self-sabotage fest of what else can we ruin while we're at it. So you don't want to include some type of bad habit, perhaps all the way at the start if you really are that undisciplined and you have so many bad habits you want to get rid of. But generally speaking, you want to do something like, let's meditate, let's read a book, let's do something that is semi-rewarding but still a positive habit. My preferred route of enjoyment is sacrificing for the sake of sacrificing, and we can do this through 2 primary drivers. So the first big driver is kind of achievement. It's excellence, separation of every second that you spend doing things that you do not like. You separate yourself further from all the normies who can't commit to anything difficult. And then the second thing is being an offering. So tying your sacrifice to a greater purpose. We are all offerings. So every morning that I step into my cold shower, it's not that I think, yay, cold shower. I just think, is this a burden that I can carry for myself, or for the people that I care about, or for the world? And then it's kind of like, of course, this is literally, right, nothing in comparison to the burdens that some people have to carry. Now that we have that out of the way, we can actually start to build the habit. And we don't immediately go all the way to our level 100 of, let's say we want to go to the gym, but we don't immediately say, let's go to the gym 5 times and have a 1-hour session. We can be doing that, and we can aim to actually do that, but let's make a non-negotiable something smaller. So let's make it a non-negotiable. Let's pack our bag 5 times a week and tie our shoes to be ready to go to the gym. And then even if you do not go 5 times a week, as long as you did that 5 times a week, that is the first habit. Then perhaps the second habit is we go to the gym 3 times and we just have a 15-minute session minimum. Then generally when you're already there, you're going to go longer anyways, right? But it's just about slowly increasing the non-negotiable towards the thing that we strive for, rather than trying to bump all the way up and then being discouraged and becoming demotivated. Last step is transform, right? So the long-lasting way to create this behavior change is we transform into the person who we need to be to make it sustainable, and we do this by never breaking. And we assume the identity of a person that does that habit on autopilot. So it's kind of a thing of, right, like, of course I do this because this is part of who I am. It's not something that other people do that, where you look at is literally, this is part of my being right now. And that is the thing that actually makes it sustainable and something that you can commit to for decades. Those would be all my pointers around habit formation. If you have any specific questions, shoot me a message. If you want to completely dial in all of your habits and create this lasting behavior change for the rest of your life, rather than making it something that you struggle with for years like most people do, then shoot me a message and I can help you with that. And outside of that, wish you a very good day.